Hello everyone, how's everyone doing? I got dropped this wonderful looking relic. Well, I 5 to wand this wonderful relic, and I thought I'd make a build around deck stacking. It was a fairly popular build in 3.19, and still a few people playing it in 3.2, so I thought I'd make a build guide slash showcase, just showing the build off. It's a reasonable build. I don't know if I call it a well-rounded beast, but it has its pros and its cons. It's a very good mapper. You can do all the map mods. No regen, reflect, can't leech. There's no mod it can't do. So it's nice and cozy for that. It's very good bossing. Apart from Uber Cirrus, it can pretty much do everything else. I've done every Uber apart from Cirrus. Cirrus ground degen. We don't have much regen. Even though our Chaos Res is somewhat high, Cirrus isn't really a player. So apart from Cirrus, you can pretty much do all content in the game. Maybe Uber Cortex. It depends on the mods for Uber Cortex. If you get can't crit and a bunch of attack and cast speed or something, you're just going to get one shot. So apart from that, it's very good. Clears content very fast. It's very speedy. Has good single target, good clear. It's not budget friendly, however. I've personally not played it on a budget, so I can recommend it. This is somewhere in the region of 50 to 200 divines, depending on how optimized you go and if you craft your own gear and all that. So I wouldn't recommend playing it on a budget, really. And it could be a bit tankier. It has not a lot of armor. It's got 33k evasion, 100% spell suppress, and you're generally fast and you have life gain on hit, but it's not the tankiest build in the world. It's not going to tank Ubers. Like, you're not going to sit there and face tank. You're going to have to do some mechanics and dodging as much as you can DPS them down. So, the gear, we have a Noble Claw that I crafted. It's got 2 to 4 cold damage per 10 dex as an implicit, and then some other things. It's not the hardest craft, but it will be fairly expensive. You can either get this claw, or you can get a hunter claw with a mod as a prefix instead of a implicit. There's pros and cons to both. This way you have to get another source of life gain, so I've got vitality on hit instead of the implicit from the claw. But then we get an extra 50% cold damage, so yeah, take it as you will. Either get this or a hunter claw, and that's pretty imperative to the build. You need the relic and the claw. I wouldn't recommend playing without the relic or on a budget. Apart from that, we've got Fractal Thoughts. You also pretty much need this. It's pretty typical deck stack and stuff. Okay, so you got Fractal Thoughts, gives you damage and crit multi. I've got 90% cost and reservation multiplier with Enlighten 4. If you don't have these two, you can't run all these 3 auras, so like I said, it's not a super budget build. The rest of the gear is all what you'd expect. Dex ring with dex res and minus mana cost. Amulet is dex with essence dex, all attributes, a bit of life and some minus mana cost again. Dex life res minus mana cost. Boots res life and dex, nothing special. And gloves again, dex res life spell suppress, cold exposure on hit. Pretty simple gear, somewhat pricey with the implicits, but not too bad. And the belt again, just dex life, bit of res, and an implicit of dex. The chest is probably the hardest to craft. If you don't know what you're doing, it's probably the priciest part, apart from the claw, maybe, either the chest or the claw. This will set you back maybe 30 divine. It's +1 curse, base crit, percent life, attack speed per dex, which is the breach only mod, and then crafted life. I happen to get Chaos Res as a suffix. Ideally, you want attributes crafted. probably instead of Chaos Res, but the way the craft happened, we couldn't get that. Okay, so apart from that, we've got flasks, bottled faith, a crit flask, armor and onslaught, and then a rise hand for clearing maps. You really don't need this. I just put it in because it's nice to hear the explosions, but for bossing, I use a instant poison life flask. Once again, you really don't need a rise hand. You can use an instant life flask, and it's just as good. This is as if you have spare 20 div lying around. All right, so that's all the gear. Gem wise, it's Ancestral Protector just for the attack speed buff. Phantasma gives you a slightly better buff, but you can use regular if you're low on money. Sniper's Mark and Mark on hit, pretty self-explanatory. And we got Hatred, Grace, and Purity of Elements in our Enlighten Fractal Thought setup. They need to be in this helm with Enlighten, otherwise you won't be able to reserve them. We have Arrogance with the Vitality and Precision, both level 1. This is just, 20% crit, and to have the Watcher's Eye mod. If you don't go for the Synthesized Claw and you go for the Hunter Claw instead, you can drop the Vitality, get Watcher's Eye and maybe a 2-stat Hatred or a Hatred Precision, whatever you can find really. And you don't need to run this, you have an extra gem socket to play with. Boots, we have Flame Dash, just for getting over walls, dodging Shaper Beam, you don't want to be whirling blades through Shaper Beam. And then a Stormbrand Hex Touch Frostbite. Ideally, you want Frostbite on your ring, but I'm very res starved in this build, so I couldn't fit it in. But if you can fit it in, get it as an implicit on the ring. Sorry about that. And finally we got Fortify with Whirling Blades, faster attacks, and Anomalous Blood Rage. This just, you don't need the Anomalous, it just helps you get Frenzy Charges on bosses. So if you don't want to spend 4 div, you can just use the regular Blood Rage and it'll be just fine. Let me look at the tree. So the tree, I'd say it's a pretty standard Spectral Thread tree. There's a few things to note. You should a massive Thread of Hope. This helps you get some very spicy nodes. You can get life, attack speed, LE pen, attack speed. This is a very, very cool Thread of Hope indeed. We have Unnatural Instinct. This gives you a lot of things: life, chaos res, dex, a bit of crit. Recommend this, but you can always drop this if you can't afford it. Put the 3 points somewhere else. Maybe just take these 3 points instead. Claw node, elusive mastery, pretty standard stuff. Suppression, crit chance increased by suppression. Life, dex node. Most of the trees are pretty standard. We use a brutal restraint to give us a lot of dex, so you can search these in POV if you didn't know. In the bottom right there's a function. This one gives me, I think 15% dex in total. Yeah, we got 5% here, 5% here, 5% here, 25 crit chance, and 4% life. So very, very good for two passive points. Then we got 2 clusters. The clusters are pretty important to getting the dex up, so you can't skimp out on the clusters. You need IE4 large clusters with 12 passives. Attack damage while holding a shield. This one is crafted while it's fractured, and then all attributes, dex, and whatever else you get. You can just exalt slam on if you have a missing prefix. Life is good, damage is okay. I think it's attack and cast speed, so whatever you can get. And you take, if I had more levels I'd take this node, but I'm only level 96. And the other cluster is pretty similar. It is Chaos Res, Dex, and increased effects. This one's a lot worse, but you want to try and get the Chaos Res somewhere. Otherwise, you're going to be negative. If we didn't have this cluster, what does it give us? 6 times 7, 40. This gives us 42% Chaos Res. That's pretty good. And yeah, if I had more points, I'd probably take all 4 of these nodes, because they're really good. If I was level 100. And then finally we got the Watcher's Eye. As you've already seen, this life gain on hit and a hatred. Emperor's Cunning for some Dex. It's always nice to have more character size. And then the Forbidden Flesh and Flame we chose is Master Surgeon. This just gives us quality of life on mapping, really. Gets rid of the bleeds, means we don't have to worry about corrupting blood, and gives us some nice sustain when we're popping our flasks. And flask charge on crit is always nice. You don't need this. I mean, it's cheap, it's 90C. If you wanted to replace it with a damage node, you could. The Onslaught effect node is pretty good. The attack speed during any flask effect from Pathfinder is also pretty good. So whatever Food and Flame you want to run. I chose Surgeon for quality of life, but you could also swap these. If you're low on res, you can just put in some res, dex, life, rare jewels, and they would do fine. Yeah, I think that's all the gear in the build. I can run a map quickly, just to show you what the build feels like. It's pretty speedy. Don't really have to worry about any map mods. You're not paper thin. You can take a few hits if you really want to. But it's not a Giga tank. I wouldn't recommend standing in the blue on death effects or anything. We'll do a Sanctum while we're here. I probably wouldn't recommend it for a no-hit run, but just doing the Sanctum itself, it's pretty free. Hello? Last boss, where are you? It's nice that it freezes as well, apart from having good damage.
Let's see how strong your resolve truly is.
I won't pick up the shrine, just so we can see the boss DPS without any buffs on. Go, boss is dead. That means very, you can't even see his health bar, it's pretty fast. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like I said, I wouldn't call it a well-rounded beast. It's not quite tanky enough for me to give it that status. I mean, say what you will, depends on your definition of a well-rounded beast. But if you get this relic and you want to try it, I'd give it a go. I think it's either this or Dex Ballista. I've not played Dex Ballista, but I think this is better quality of life. You don't want to be playing that totem style. You want to be more of a zoom, then you can play this instead. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm not a master build maker or anything. This is all pretty standard stuff. But yeah, see ya.